Tell us, what are your emotions on retiring?
It's probably been something that I've thought about for the last couple of years. So I'm at peace with it, if I'm honest. It's the right decision, it's the right time. And I think, disappointing thing for me is that I'd have liked to have ended the season on a high with the football club, but obviously that hasn't happened. But no, it's the right decision, Ben. Emotionally, I can't tell you how I'm going to feel on the day, but at the moment I'm okay.
I mean, how do you feel you'll look back on your career, so say trying to predict into the future a little bit, but how do you think you'll look back on your sort of 20 years as a pro?
Completely overachieved, if I'm honest. I spent the majority of my career at the top level of the game. That I'm immensely proud of. I did that through hard work, desire, motivation. Everything was, once I got there, it was actually tougher staying there. That's what I found. And for me now, I'm happy with what I achieved and the appearances that I made. Obviously, it would have been better to play longer at the top, but that wasn't meant to be. But I think when I look back, and I look back on my strengths, I look back on my weaknesses, I think mentally I was very strong at the right times in my career.
Okay, back to the start, sort of humble beginnings, I suppose, at Luton Town. What are your memories of sort of breaking through into that team?
So I signed it just before my 17th birthday and I signed a 2-year YTS. Made that decision that I was going to do that as opposed to staying on at school and doing my A-levels. And within 6 months, I had been offered a professional contract at the football club, which I couldn't believe. Took the contract. The following season, the football club unfortunately went into administration, which meant that the bigger earning players had to move on. And there was a berth, I think it was left wing back or left back, and Lenny Lawrence, who was the manager at the time, chucked me in. Played all the games in pre-season, scored a couple of goals, and then played every game that season. So yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. So to go from leaving school 12 months earlier to playing in the equivalent of what is League One now for Luton Town, and then spending 2 more seasons there playing in the first team. Really enjoyed myself, suffered a relegation in my second season, but then suffered my first promotion, or should I say gained my first promotion the following season from what is now League Two.
Beginnings, sort of ups and downs, and then for you it was also individual accolades. So you won Young Player of the Season while you were at Luton Town, yep. And you had offers to move on right to the top straight away, didn't you? But you opted to move to Portsmouth to a club that was on an upward trajectory, shall we say. And how was it making that decision?
It was tough. I could have gone straight to the Premier League, but I decided that having had 3 seasons of playing week in, week out, that was what made me happy. I didn't want to go and sit on a bench, albeit in a Premier League scenario. I wanted to go and play football, and signing for Portsmouth and Harry Redknapp gave me the opportunity to do that. Ironically, the season before I signed at Portsmouth, they just escaped relegation in the Championship. And I went there, probably slightly naively. The expectation wasn't to go on and win the league like we did, but it was just an unbelievable experience. Unfortunately, I got injured probably about 8 to 10 games before the end of the season. But up to that point, played every game and loved every minute of it. It was fantastic for me, and it carried on from where I had been the 3 previous seasons, that I was playing football. And I was learning whilst playing. I was playing with men, I was playing with extremely talented, experienced footballers. And it was a step up in level. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to jump too quickly. So I decided, along with my family, the right thing to do was to move to Portsmouth. I could still travel from the place I live at now. And that was a big thing for me at the time. So it was the right decision, and that was evident with us getting in the Premier League. What was ironic is that I had come second in League Two, with the equivalent of League Two, and then within 12 months won the Championship and was playing in the Premier League. It was a crazy time in my life.
I mean, you mentioned it, Harry Redknapp, you worked under him and he got that team up, and also you talked about sort of experienced professionals. You worked with Paul Merson was there at the time. How was it, just that sort of dressing room as a whole?
Slightly surreal the first day I walked in, because at Luton we weren't exposed to a huge amount of should I say excellent footballers, and that's no disrespect, but that's the level we were playing at. So therefore, for me to walk into a dressing room and see Paul Merson, who I'd only ever seen on the TV before, and then to find out that he was actually a really good man, but an unbelievable footballer. At that, I would have been 20 years old. Ben, at that time, I just used to run up and down the line, and honestly, the ball used to end up at my feet 9 times out of 10 from him. Phenomenal. Never used to warm up before games. You sit in the changing room, have a cup of tea, and then go out every Saturday afternoon or Tuesday evening and be the best player. As I say, it was an experience that I'll never forget. It was one that, albeit they were wonderful footballers, they were great people. There was no undertone to anything at Portsmouth, and I think probably the reason is because we overachieved, so there wasn't any expectation. And I loved it. Yeah, I loved that first season at Portsmouth, getting promoted into the Premier League.
Yeah, you speak about defying the odds. I mean, they defied it by getting promoted in itself, but then again, I suppose you say for yourself the achievement was staying up in the Premier League, but actually for Portsmouth that was also the achievement. But it wasn't just that; it was getting into the top half, getting into Champions League spots in that first season. How was it, and how sort of surprised were you as a dressing room to achieve that?
Well, Harry waved his magic wand again and signed some really good players and experienced players at that level. The expectation was just to try and stay in the league, and we did that comfortably that season. I think finished, I would say, just inside the top 10. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a new experience for the bigger teams in the Premier League coming to play at Fratton Park. They didn't like the atmosphere, I don't think. The changing rooms weren't great, and the pitch, I think you still got it now, a little mound. We played extremely well there, and we had no fear, because coupled with the experience of the Premier League and those older players, we had some really talented young players as well. And if I look at it personally, what did I have to fear? Because everything else I'd done up to that point had worked. I'd loved playing football. And I just remember I came back from my injury, my first taste of Premier League football, and I just thought, wow, this is quick. And I'd been out for a period of time, it was about 6 months, but it took me a little bit of time to settle into the pace of the Premier League. But it was just, I'm really lucky, Ben, to have achieved what I have in terms of playing at that level for so long and having longevity. I mean, it comes through desire, obviously, but yeah, I look back on everything, especially that time, that being my first season in the Premier League with immense. I suppose I'm just quite proud of what I achieved in that first season, because we probably were favourites to get relegated, albeit we signed some good footballers and we had a manager that had been there, seen it and done it. So for little old Portsmouth at the time to go and achieve what we did that season was great.
Yeah, it would be rude of me not to mention a few of your more special strikes, shall we say, while at Portsmouth. Do you have a favourite? There are a couple at Everton, at home to Everton and away at Sunderland, stand out in a lot of sort of...
If I had to pick between those two, it would be the one at Sunderland, because of the situation that we were in at the time, and it was a huge game for us. I wasn't playing in the morning, and then one of the players went down ill, so I got the nod and ended up setting up 2 and scoring 2. Doesn't get much better than that. And to have scored from the distance that I did was, obviously very pleasing for me. But the only reason I shot Ben is because we had no striker on the pitch because he was off injured. So, ironically it flew in, and it set the tone for us to go and gain a vital 3 points.